Hello everybody, Bits and Bobs on a Tuesday is coming at you. Happy to say I'm joined in studio by Conor McKeown. Hello Conor.
Hi Joe.
And Dan McDonnell. And join the sunshine Dan. Hello.
Hi lads, how are things?
A non-exhaustive list of things we're going to try and talk about. Not get to everything I suspect. Leinster pain. Leinster fans need to talk more based on the emails. Non-Leinster fans also keen to talk. Snooker has its first Chinese world champion in the shape of Zhao Jintong. Mark Williams winning hearts and minds on X. We have Kamogi. Skorts controversy erupts. We have Stephen Bradley versus Damien Duff erupting as well. We have Stephen Bradley and Hamer Hallgrimsson now best friends. We have Galway and Kerry provincial champions. Conor was down in Killarney. We have Colin Healy, manager of Kerry FC. We have Trent confirming Real Madrid move. Jamie Carragher, not angry but disappointed. We have things we almost certainly won't get to. Scotty Scheffler winning with a score of 31 under on the PGA Tour. Easy golf is boring. The Byron Nelson says Conor McKeown. And Dan McDonnell watched hours on end of the EFL final day. Leeds clinch championship. Luton relegation again, Bradford snatch promotion in stoppage time, etc. And you especially enjoyed Natasha Bedingfield with Burnley.
I mean, that sentence alone just describes why it needs to be involved in the show.
She's not from Burnley.
No, she's from, I think they might be English, New Zealand or something, but I think she's from Sussex or something. But yeah, no, they've adopted Unwritten as the anthem in the dressing room. But clearly Natasha, I mean, it's a bit like, I suppose Johnny Logan has popped up at Bows on account of like the Bows fans adopting Hold Me Now, and all of a sudden Johnny Logan was walking on the Dalymount Park pitch one day singing Hold Me Now, partly wondering what am I doing here, but equally these people are really enjoying my songs and maybe I haven't been in the news for a while. And Natasha Bedingfield, she was on the pitch in Turf Moor wandering around. I mean, I've been to Burnley, like I wouldn't say Burnley is prime Bedingfield country. No. In terms of like the demographic of the fan base. So I think the players loved the song. The fans seemed somewhat perplexed by her presence.
Yes, they really did. So kids, Natasha Bedingfield in 2004, that's 21 years ago, Dan,
God.
Had pop classic Unwritten, and they've adopted it as their anthem. And so she came out onto the pitch and she was like, I'm so inspired by your story. I'm so honoured to be part of it. And the camera's like, it's the Burnley official camera. And you cut to the crowd and they're just like arms crossed going, what is this?
Yeah,
and she has to perform. You know, it's the art of a great performer whereby she has to perform with like, I'm enjoying this and this is, you know, full of vitality. And then you cuts to the crowd behind her and they're honestly...
There's a bit of context, yeah.
Nothing.
A bit of context needed here as well. Like Burnley were promoted last week. On Saturday, Leeds scored a goal in the 93rd minute to stop Burnley from winning the league. So instead of a trophy presentation, they got Bedingfield. So like the crowd did their celebration thing last week. They were following updates all afternoon. It was brilliant on Saturday. It's one of the best days of the year. And then Leeds scored in injury time. So the word comes true and it's like, well, you have to still go out and do your lap of honour. And by the way...
What a pro. What a pro.
Look who we brought.
Sorry, there's further context here because we're in danger of sounding like three old lads talking about something.
What do you mean? Sorry, Natasha Bedingfield's right in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reason I would imagine, because when Dan was playing the song to me outside, I was like, why is that song so vivid in my memory? Because it definitely didn't make as big an impact on me in 2004 that I would remember it now. But the song got a second wind last year when it was the theme song, and I'm not reading this off my phone, for the recent blockbuster rom-com Anyone But You featuring Sydney Sweeney.
Should have come back. See, I thought it might have been a TikTok thing. A lot of comeback.
Yeah, but see, so I think it was one of those movies as a marketing kind of viral campaign. People did TikToks of themselves, you know, pouring buckets of water over their head,
right,
singing Feel the Rain. So
what do you mean it didn't make a mark in you for? It was like the song of the summer.
No, it did, but what I'm saying, it didn't make such a mark that I would, when Dan played it for me earlier on,
recognise it?
Yeah, no, not recognise it, but it to seem that vivid. I think it might be because I accidentally followed Sydney Sweeney on Instagram or something. I don't know.
Here she is.
Terrible accidental follow, Conor. All right.
Yeah.
I hate how you accidentally follow those people. All right. It's just amazing how your the phone always goes to the wrong place with that. But
here she is in the Burnley dressing room. So players, Scott Parker, of course, of Dry Your Eyes Made fame, all in the dressing room having a great time.
Staring at the black days before you, open up the dirty window. There's something new and take the outside. You can
High note there. She's in amongst them having a good time here. She's thrilled at this. It's like, she's played in big stadiums, but like this is
Yeah, for people who haven't seen it, she's
really she can't believe it.
She starts off on the floor and then she just jumps up onto the bench with the lads, arms around them.
Well, fair play to her. What is it with these slightly incongruous choices of dressing rooms? Like, is there sort of a piss-takey aspect to these songs? That's why
I'm not sure. I'm not
just
sure.
wondering, is part of her thinking, is this like they've picked such an incongruous choice, like just to be a little bit, transgressive almost? Like it's funny that we've picked this song. I'm not sure it's 100%. We love this song.
But you remember a couple of years ago, it was R. Kelly, The World's Greatest, became a thing, and it started off with English. Do you not remember this?
No.
It started with Jamie O'Hara, I think, was involved in Billericay Town, and it was non-league football. Billericay, sorry, whatever.
Billericay. All right, Hyacinth.
Dorset Street. but they had that became a thing, and there was dressing rooms singing that, and there was like a motivational element to it, and it's almost like all the lads together are singing this slightly. I don't know if it was fully piss-takey.
You see, I don't know either, because
the lyrics of this, right? Staring at the blank page before you.
Stop, don't get
so
that
close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. It's like, we are going for promotion. This is like something that some guru has brought in.
Explain this to me. Why at the Euros did the England dressing room adopt this one? Banger. There's a high note coming here that they really struggle with. There. And on they go.
What song is that?
Somebody that I used to know.
Oh, I didn't even pick that up. Yeah.
Well, it's a tough song to sing.
Yeah.
And Adele, Someone Like You, pops up in places as well. I don't know, these songs, I don't know what's going on here. I feel very, like, outside of the culture.
That was some night out story.
I'd say that was the Johnny Logan thing, wasn't it?
So the Johnny Logan thing was, it was actually the Bows fans in Norway in 2004.
It stems from night out, it comes on, it's a memory, and it becomes the anthem. But Natasha's like, they just love my work.
On the wider point of pop music at sports games, it never really works. The GA tried to do this, and it tends to be a little bit clunky sometimes, and I don't think you can ever have the music close enough to the start of the game because of to facilitate the warm-up. So there's not enough people on the ground. So at that Cork Tipperary game that turned into a dead duck Sunday week ago, the Cork County Board wanted to put on a big show because they had a sellout for the first time, and they got the Frank and Walters in, and what's their song that has been adopted?
After All.
Yeah, that has become the unofficial Cork hurling anthem. They play it in Croke Park after they win their games, and but the problem was that like the Frank and Walters were there, they were setting up about 45 minutes before throw-in, and there was nobody in the ground. Wow. And they sang 2 songs and never got to After All, and packed up because they had to be off the pitch at a certain time before the warm-up started.
But they would have got as much back from the crowd as Natasha Bedingfield at Burnley.
But on Easter Monday, Shells had Mauro Picotto down in Talca Park. He was set up in the sort of condemned stand behind the goal that can't be used.
Who is that? Sorry,
Mauro Picotto was like 90s sort of DJ. He'd played a sold-out gig in Dublin the night before.
Right. Do you know him?
No.
Mauro Picotto. What's the song that Shells had adopted when they scored? It started from their fans when they scored a goal.
Not fair, is it?
Oh no, I feel no. They also do a Lily Allen song. But,
sorry, the Lily Allen.
Sorry, Lily. That's another case in point. Lily Allen.
Yeah, the Shells fans have Lily
what's
Allen
going on
thing.
there?
I think that's to do with a night out or something. Okay. But I mean, Freed from Desire has become the latest thing. But Shells had Mauro Picotto, who's like superstar DJ who played a sold out show in Dublin the night before, and he's in Talca Park at 4 o'clock on a Monday ahead of a 5 o'clock game, set up just like jamming, like doing stuff. Yeah. And I mean, I met a fella walking in who was like, I was generally his media there early before the games. I met some lad going in, he was like, oh yeah, I'm here for Picotto. Like, this fella had come for the show, and he'd done it like genuinely a proper big name. And it's annoying me now the song that they all sing, but it does start from I know what you mean, it starts from a slightly ironic place.
Yes.
But I do wonder with some of them, is there a bit of a self-help guru of this, let's all get together and share this moment, and this is us.
It's a communal thing. It's just
no sign of Josh Cullen in the dressing room, I will say.
I'd be above that.
No, he's not a press.
He doesn't do irony.
No.
We have one last clip. Can you guess one last clip of singing over the weekend? Allow your heart to swell here. Have a little guess who this might be. Harry.
It's Harry Kane. Yeah.
Come on. He's holding the camera. He's selfieing himself here. He's singing way more vociferously than any of the other Bayern players, but you'll allow him that.
I'm happy for him.
Ah, come on. There we go. So that's the weekend's EFL covered. Indo Sport Podcast at independent.ie is where you can get us. And as ever, follow the Indo Sport Podcast channel on YouTube. The only place Bits and Bobs goes out is there. They allow some of our other stuff to go out on the Irish Independent YouTube channel, but Bits and Bobs in the backwater of Indo Sports Podcast.
What?
It's just the way it is.
Literally golden content.
So, a lot to get through. I've changed some details in this email, including the emailer's name, because, well, you'll see. Hi, Joe. Love the pod, particularly the Eamon Sweeney interview. It was brilliant. You said last week how sport gives a great rhythm to your life, and I couldn't agree more. I love the way it flows and punctuates the calendar year. So I thought, we're in for something beautiful here. This will be 99 cones, GA Championship, maybe a bit of golf, Masters. It takes a left turn. The period I especially love, the 2 weeks in May when my insufferable boss Dermot has to have the reckoning once again that Leinster aren't in fact the best team in Europe and that they've choked again. It's the only time all year he doesn't have a smug look on his a smug look permanently on his face, and team meetings are just a little more bearable. Cheers, Tom. Tom, I changed your name for your sake. David said, lads, can I request that Conor McKeown is in the rugby review show this week? I think he'd love to try and diagnose what went wrong. Well, here you are, Conor, if you want to say anything. We did yesterday have Eddie O'Sullivan and Rory O'Connor, with thanks to Energia doing the heavy lifting, Geordie Barrett omission, defensive capitulation, turning down the 3 points, etc. So that is all waiting for you. Ben Youngs, I saw, former English international, Leinster arrogant for not playing Geordie Barrett. I know neither of you two are rugby bastions, so we don't have to dwell on this. Any observations on the schadenfreude that's out there in Leinster?
My observation would be the schadenfreude. Like I did not appreciate. I mean, I got a fair wind of it last year about the Irish rugby team, like just people that I follow and stuff like that. And remember, James Corrigan wrote that article in the Telegraph. And since then, I've kind of picked up on it more. I didn't realise that we were quite as unpopular in the pretty small, you'd have to say, group of countries that pay much attention to rugby. But I can see it now, like standing back, if you don't have a connection to Leinster, if you don't follow them, I can understand why you would openly dislike them, you know, in terms of, you know, that whole behemoth and putting yourself out there. And I remember even saying to Rod a couple of weeks ago, it was just after, not Sevilla, who's the winger who's after signing from New Zealand?
Rico Ioane.
Yeah, Ioane. Like, it does have that. I know that New Zealand players sometimes do that, but it's quite a mercenary thing, you know. You go on a break, you get a load of money for 9 months, and then you come over and join Leinster and try and tip them over the top. So I get where it's kind of coming from. But I honestly didn't realise it was quite so out there that that Leinster were as unpopular as they are.
Bit of that, yeah. They're sort of at the, an analogy you'll enjoy, they're sort of somewhere between Rory, St Andrews and Pinehurst here right now.
In terms of
like
tragedy,
how can they have messed this up again? Albeit even worse than Rory, because they're kind of just so clearly the best team this season, you know.
But didn't Rory's failures make him more endearing to people? Whereas it feels, again, slightly removed from it, not the best place to comment on it, but it does feel like people seem to more so externally enjoy those failures rather than, and I don't know, is that because there's just, like, you talk to people, like spoke to someone recently, the piece with Fergal Karen, a physio who was involved with Leinster and then went on to work with Chelsea, you know, I spoke about him in here, and like the way he speaks about Leinster is just, well, it's just an incredible setup. The academy is world class, it's brilliant, and a lot of people like romance in their sporting stories. There's very little romance about the Leinster story. Is just very clinical and professional and impressive, and as Conor says, the ability to go out and bring in like the best and the best of the best in the world. And look, people don't warm to Man City or PSG or you know, sort of live golf, or, you know, people who can do things, and I know that people will quite rightly maybe pick faults with the, you know, the particulars of that and point to certain stories and players and backgrounds, but you can stand back from it and go, yeah, you can see why. Like, it is a province playing like a team, Northampton, who seems to have been written off. You do have people saying, I'm not even going to bother going to that semi-final. Like imagine like how Irish fans, I think in a football context, would react if you're playing a World Cup playoff against some country and they're on about how they've booked their hotel in the tournament venue or their fans have booked tickets. No, people want them to lose. Like people want them to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, at a kind of a very superficial level, much of their unpopularity is from fans of other provinces. So there's going to be an obvious dislike there. I mean, the Munster fan is going to revel in their rival losing. But I think to your point, there is, sort of begrudging of the fact that so much is stacked in their favour. They have a budget of, and they don't publish it, but you would guess somewhere between 11 and 13, 14 million. Northampton's salary cap would be 7. You know, in France it's kind of 11. So they've the biggest budget in many ways. They have this kind of La Masia-esque school system which funnels and hoovers up all of the talent in Dublin effectively from several schools straight into their academy, and they cherry pick every year. Then they go out and get a Geordie Barrett. They go out and get a Jacques Nienaber. The RFU pay a lot of the central contracts, so they don't even have those wages to worry about. All of those things, you know, so there's a certain resentment probably of that.
It's a bit,
and so when you see them fail, it's like...
It's a bit like how you bring back to Rory. Like some people didn't relate to early Rory because he was so successful and confident, and sometimes people like their Irish sporting stories to have a different flavour to it. And there's an element of, well, you have to accept, you know, you want to be winners and professional, and how many sports, like we'll get involved with our Olympians because they're so badly funded, you know, and so criminally underfunded, and that's almost part of the story. They've triumphed against the odds.
Yeah,
they're not triumphing against the odds. So as a result,
they're flattering to deceive.
Yeah,
there's no real direct comparison in rugby, but the sort of Real Madrid Galacticos thing should be the most exciting project in football, but it's not. Like, it's utterly sort of confected and artificial, and doesn't really fit. And I think most of us enjoy that little bit of, I don't know, take a bit of delight when, okay, we got the best player in the world, Mbappe, in a free transfer, but he doesn't fit into the team, you know. And it was a bit like wasn't there a time when Racing and Stade Francais, they were doing that same thing?
Yeah, see, they're benefactor owners. There's no salary cap as such there. See, I think where Leinster, to be fair, who are not here to defend themselves, would say, hang on a second. Okay, the private schools thing, maybe people don't like that for obvious reasons, but can we just actually acknowledge, I'm sure they would say, this is an unbelievable success story that we're taking, in the main, 90% players from the locale, turning them into, I know rugby's a small world, but world-class athletes, you know, forging away in Europe, not quite winning, but, you know, doing great things and being the best team for so much of the season. Like, why the begrudgery of that? You know, like...
I do take that point, yeah.
So, you know, should we take Gary Ringrose when he's 12 and not train him as well? Should we get the schools to not do as good a job and have lesser players? So what? We're on a par with Munster. You know, like,
you have a best in class academy. Like,
sorry, we're doing a good job here, and
Yeah.
we're not buying 20 overseas players. We're buying 2 or 3. And so why are we being talked about in these terms as if like Real Madrid? I've said that we're not Real Madrid. Yeah, maybe more if they're like
by scale. By scale is
if 9 of the players were from Madrid, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think
It's
Leinster.
a local team.
I don't think Leinster are doing anything remotely wrong. I just think that what Dan said is the same thing: the efficiency of it, the impressiveness of it, the scale of it. Unless you are a fan, unless you're sort of emotionally attached to them for some pre-existing reason, I don't see them being kind of the neutrals' automatic
Darlings.
choice.
No,
I don't think that happens very naturally.
How many European Cup partakes would they have to have before they would reach the Rory territory if everyone wants them to do it? Mayo levels.
I don't know, actually, yeah. I don't know, but I mean...
If they lose another 45 finals, would you like them to win the 46? Like, where does this end?
Yeah, I think, but again, like when you do have like fans just talking about not going to the semi-final and not attending, I don't need to bother with that semi-final. I can't think of a parallel there. Like,
Kerry.
a lot of it, like
Kerry, Kilkenny.
some of the discussion is around like an English football team at a major tournament and Irish rugby at times. There can be there's similarities.
English
there.
soccer.
Oh yeah,
All right.
big time.
Okay.
There's definitely a vibe around it where their words get thrown back at them, and maybe sometimes like that can be unfair, but they seem to just again, as Conor says, like the James Corrigan piece last year and the comments that seem to come people seem to enjoy throwing back their comments at them. And
I think to be fair, they probably, and like wouldn't throw stones, because I, with great confidence a couple of weeks ago, said the Leinster are going to win the European Cup. It's just so nailed on. I think, to be fair, some of the media comments get conflated with what the team is saying a little bit.
But that can be an English football thing as well. Quite often it's the media as opposed to what actual players are saying.
Yeah. Well, look, Lions announcement Thursday. There's now a sudden, geez, can Andy Farrell pick all these Irish players? Panic. So that's going to be really interesting. We'll cover it in more depth on Thursday afternoon when the announcement is made. And like I said,
just on
Rory,
that,
Rory O'Connor and Eddie O'Sullivan waiting for you in the feed.
I did enjoy the new the new slew of online ire at the Lion squad that Andy Farrell hasn't yet picked. Like there was people openly losing their mind about how can he pick so many Irish players.
Yeah.
And I was looking going, I didn't see him picking anybody yet. So
Well, based on the coaching ticket
fair enough.
so far, they'd be entitled to be a little bit concerned. So we'll see. Just to mention snooker, Chris Hardiman emailed in to say, hi lads. As I type this, I'm being a bit presumptuous because he's only 7-1 up. You weren't, as it turned out. But whatever happens, Ken Doherty deserves a ton of credit for calling Zhao Jintong as a potential champion at the end of your preview show. He mentioned the fact he'd been banned for 4 years, but really highly touted, could be a wonderful outside bet to win it. Did I have money on it though? Did I? Hell, I should have listened to Ken. He was spot on, and we could be looking at a new superstar, albeit a few years after it was expected. Sincerely, Chris Hardiman. So yeah, this is Zhao Jintong, China's first world snooker champion after Ding Junhui sort of was the trailblazer maybe 15, 20 years ago, beat Mark Williams 18-12. The reason he's an amateur, lost his card 2 years ago for his part in a match fixing scandal. He admitted to being part of an effort to fix matches, 2 matches, and so it's a little bit tainted for some people, but for China I'm sure it's a big thing. Mark Williams was busy winning hearts and minds on X all evening. The last I checked, he was still up late into the night. There was a photo of, like, it couldn't have been water. It must be just vodka, is it?
Sambuca?
Sambuca.
Had the look, that kind of a look.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 14 glasses. He says, last one and then I'm off to bed. And then there's a great photo where he has a photo of him pretending to, like a boxer, punch Zhao Jintong, who's holding the trophy. Again, this is deep into the night. He says, look at this lucky little XXXX I bumped into. And then even in the dressing room, oh well, that was tough. I've not got enough cue power to combat Zhao. There's a lot of spelling mistakes.
This was by the way, this was not afterwards. This was
during the match
with one session to go.
His cue power is superb. Probably the best putter I've ever seen. So he's tweeting during the session.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Mark Williams is 50 now. Do you remember when Wayne Rooney started off on Twitter and he was like saying to Rio Ferdinand, are you all right for a lift? Training tomorrow. And then eventually, like, the handlers got hold of him and said, you must not do this. Like, this is like, I feel like Mark Williams is like, he's 50, he doesn't have the handlers around him, and he's using social media like he's just discovered it. Yeah. And it's fantastic. Like, he's putting on stuff all through the game, and just a stream of consciousness stuff, and it just blows away. Like, you obviously see, like, Ronnie O'Sullivan, the Ronnie O'Sullivan documentary, and obviously I know you've spoken about it in recent weeks, like, massively complex person, but you see him in the dressing room struggling with with doubt or whatever, and then you have someone like Mark Williams, and it blows away the myth of behind the dressing room door. He's just sat on his phone sending out a tweet, and it's just I do enjoy the snooker characters in some respects because it's very unfiltered.
Yeah. Stephen Bradley. So the Duff one.
Interesting you start with Stephen Bradley, actually, as opposed to Damien Duff in this context. It sort of lets me think you are what you're thinking about this.
Interesting. Okay. Well, how, as I understand it, this all started. Jeez, I feel like I'm under pressure. What is this?
I'm genuinely interested by.
Whoa!
I'm genuinely interested by your take on this. I actually am, as sort of from just reading the quotes, as a lot of people do with these two lads in a week, day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis. What have Bradley and Duff said?
Well, look, I was on Team Hamer back in the
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a little.
And they're mates, but we'll come back to that.
Because
Yeah.
one of them was
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay.
I see where you're coming.
So what happened here is that I don't have, on a serious note, I don't have some take. I'm actually here to ask you what's going on here with these two. Like I did say to Ronan, is this like Roddy Collins and Dermot Keeley stirring it up? All possibilities are on the table. And also shout out to Drogheda, quietly going about their business, top of the table. They won 3-2 against Cork, a point clear, ignored by everyone. They'll fall away. That's what people are saying.
Bows have got 397-minute winners in the last 4 games.
Yeah, and look at
Look what we're talking about.
Well, you're in the clip. Hang on. So this stems from 2 weeks ago, the game at Tala, which was 2-2 between Damien Duff Shelburne and Stephen Bradley Shamrock Rovers, and Duff went straight down the tunnel, didn't shake hands. The reason it transpires Duff did not shake hands is that he had said that Kieran McEnroy is the best player in the league. And this had been put to Bradley, and Bradley said, sometimes Damien can get a bit carried away with his comments. A little bit emotional. How would Stephen have felt if someone said that about him? Will I keep going?
Keep going, Joe.
So he decided to write about Duff not shaking his hands in his programme notes. And, well, you asked him about this. They won 2-0 against Sligo. So you asked Stephen Bradley about his decision to write about this in the programme notes.
Just a few comments for you in the programme today that have generated a bit of a reply from Damien Duff, because you said that you showed a lack of respect by not shaking your hand here after the Shells game. Is that something that disappointed you then?
Of course it is, yeah. It is a lack of respect. There's no doubt about it. And regardless whether it's Damien or anyone else, you shake hands. We're winning 2-0 at home to Bowes and they score in the last minute to win the game 3-2. You go and shake Alan Brown's hand, Stephen O'Donnell's hand. As managers, coaches, we've got a duty to lead and show respect. We're talking about trying to take it forward and trying to raise the standards of the league. That's all part of it. If you don't want to shake hands, that's fine. That's your choice, but it can't be when it suits that you shake hands. It's about being respectful. Win, lose or draw, regardless of what I said on the touchline, you shake hands. And I think, it was disrespectful.
I think I'm just saying back what Damien has said. You'll see it this evening. That Damien seems to have taken offence to, I think a couple of weeks ago, you said Damien gets a little bit carried away. He gets emotional. I think it was his response maybe to something like Kieran McEnroy, and he's suggested that was critical of his character, and that's why he didn't shake your hand. So I don't know what your response is to that, but that's what he has said. So
do you want me to read it? It's like,
no, it's irrelevant. No, I think it's a very simple. You shake hands before the game. So what's changed in that 90 minutes?
did he shake hands before the game?
Very simple.
So we didn't see his response. Did Duff shake hands before the game?
Oh, he smiled, and then so I think
He nodded.
in the Duff quotes, Duff actually says,
but Bradley nodded to say he did shake hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Duff's quotes, Duff said he nearly didn't shake hands
Yeah, I have that.
before the game. Sort of,
Yeah, but we just couldn't see Bradley there. So
he
he nodded.
smiled and said,
He did, okay. So Duff and Shelburne Law lose at home to Waterford, no win 5 in 7th. So I think the mood's not great. All he needs there is, Damien, did you see what Stephen Bradley wrote about you in his programme notes? Yeah, you can imagine. Listen, I think since Stephen got invited down to the Dole, he's... that a pre-prepared line?
that was well, I don't know, because
He couldn't have known the programme notes. So
like it was an interview program.
But since Stephen got invited down to the Dole, his opinion on everything is maybe that's been in the back pocket for the appropriate moment.
You'd wonder, yeah.
Anyway, I think since Stephen got invited down to the Dole, he seems to think he can comment on everything at the minute. I didn't shake his hand after the game. Didn't shake any of the staff's hands after the game because I didn't think they deserved it. I wasn't even going to shake their hands before the game because if it was a lack of respect for how we spoke, because it was due to a lack of respect for how he spoke about me before the game. So if he's still going on about it, that's all I have to say about it. So there's probably a point there where Bradley, because Duff shook hands before the game and then didn't shake hands after the game, Bradley probably understandably assumes something happened in the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas Duff had a bee in his bonnet going there, one way or another, emotions maybe not as heightened pre-game, does shake hands, but then is almost thinking, actually, I didn't want to shake his hand because what he said about me being a bit emotional and getting carried away over Kieran McEnroy. And so, well, there we are. Yeah, I don't have a take. Like, I'm kind of an interested observer.
Can I have a take?
Yeah.
Coming at it from more or less the same place as Joe and not the same place as Dan, without all the context attack. I don't think what Stephen Bradley said about Damien Duff seems to be particularly incendiary. Like, to warrant not shaking his hand and that of his staff.
That he's
And it's not
he gets carried away. He's a little bit emotional.
Yeah, no, I can understand why you might find it like.
What if I said that about you?
That's fine.
Would you shake my hand?
I don't think I've ever shook your hand.
I suppose like he could be. If we were someone said here, well, you like you get a little bit emotional. That can be a little bit deemed as a bit sort of patronising. I do get
if they said that about you publicly.
Yeah, I do.
In the
get
national
that.
media. Well,
you know what he's like.
Dan McDonnell, he gets a bit carried away. He's a bit emotional.
You know what he's like. Yeah.
What is you? If someone said that about me, and I saw them a week or two later, and they stuck out the hand to shake my hand, I'd be a little bit like, not overly impressed. So what's your take? You're sitting there in the fence all pretty. You're trying to land us in it.
But I'd say the flip side of it for me is that I think it's been commented that there's a couple of times this season Damien Duff hasn't shook hand with the opposition manager.
Okay.
And I think definitely, I'm sure that their form at the moment and where things are at, like they're having a very frustrating time of it. They're probably dominating most of the games they're playing and getting terrible results.
Yeah, that was soft goal.
And like I think it was after they played Derry, it was commented Tiernan Lynch there was no handshake after. Now maybe I don't know, was there one after? I haven't asked anyone about it. But I think at times he's got comments from other managers about and I don't know, was there something in that? These tunnel vision, pardon the pun.
So possibly Bradley might have given the benefit of the doubt if this was a completely isolated incident.
Yeah, but I think the important point to make here, I do think like there are managers who really dislike each other, and there are managers who are competitive, and I'm sure this extends to all sports. Like I'm sure they'll be friends in 10 years' time.
Okay.
It's not like when Stephen Bradley's son was unwell and there was a public donation page, like there was a very substantial donation from Damien Duff, and they share the same representation. You mentioned Colin Healy earlier. I think they'd be very aligned on a lot of things.
That's the thing, because
they're almost together.
Most of us would see them as a together force fighting for the betterment of Irish football.
Yeah, but they're also 2 years ago they had a bit of a fallout around public comments around budgets and what are they spending. And look, in some ways there's maybe two alphas there, who are battling for a spot. And
so who's right and who's wrong in your opinion?
In this instance,
who do you need to talk to more for the rest of the season?
But I actually just think it's a good old fashioned.
No.
But I think
Daniel.
I don't know actually. I think it's.
I don't have a clue. I couldn't possibly.
It's a bit of a tit for tat. I don't know. I felt when you were discussing the Bradley Hamer thing, right, previously.
No, Dan, we'll get there. Come on.
Are we getting there? All right, okay, we're getting there.
So come on, give us a. He won't.
But I think it's a bit of a 50. I think you would definitely be patronised by the comment. I still think you should shake hands after the game.
Can I clarify? That's where I am.
I'm sort of there too.
I'm kind of there too. Like it does. I understand why you'd feel patronised.
Yeah.
And I can understand what Damien Duff did. Just think not shaking hands in a situation where the custom is that people shake hands. Yeah. Like we've seen in all sports all kinds of frosty handshakes.
It can be frosty.
The hurling managers shaking hands down by their ankles and looking up at the moon and all the rest of it. It's just a done thing. It feels like
and what of
a disproportionate reaction.
Fair enough. And what of Bradley, who's talking about raising standards in the league, being respectful to each other? What of his decision to not say it to Damien Duff privately?
Yeah.
What of his decision to write about it in programme notes where it's going to become a big thing? What about that decision, Dan?
Yeah. But it wasn't. The thing is, it's been mentioned several times as programme notes. It was an interview in the programme with someone else where he was quoted within it, or someone else did an interview with him rather than I've sat down to pen my notes.
Oh, okay, that's different.
So it was an interview. So it was buried. It wasn't like the lead. It was towards the end of it, and a couple of people saw it before the kickoff. Were like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And then it was filtered across to Aidan Fitzmaurice and asked the question. So it wasn't quite like
when I saw reported this programme, I was like,
that was it was an interview in it. But I mean, I will say the most, like the Duff comment about now he's been invited to Dáil Éireann you do have this sense sometimes, like Stephen Bradley is very forthright on a lot of issues, and you definitely do get the sense sometimes that there are people within the game who don't like that, you know. But as you said, you would have assumed that they are together on a lot of things, but now it's like Stephen Bradley said, well, I've been invited to the Dáil. You see, he's on RTE last week, he's doing the punditry, he's having coffee with Hamer, and almost like Duffer has sort of stayed loyal in the, I'm not speaking about the FAI, I'm not, and all of a sudden Stephen Bradley is out there, and maybe there's just a bit of that's maybe where a little bit of the niggle comes from.
Tell me if I'm wrong here, and again, I'm looking at it from the outside, but it's almost like in being so explicit, right? Like, as in saying, ever since he went for the Dáil, or Damien tends to get emotional, there is an element of like familiarity about it. Like, I don't think you'd say those kind of things about somebody if you didn't have some semblance of closeness on
I think
some
you're
level.
bang on about that. Yeah, I think it's like two mates who are competitive.
That's how it feels.
In time, they will be close.
Okay,
I'm sure. Like Stephen Bradley did say, Damien Duff should be the next Ireland manager after Hamer, prior to Hamer. You know, so there is that. But look, I do think as well. Look, they both know how to use the media too. Like, you know,
think there is a little bit of
no, but I think there's an element. No, I just think their personalities are very much, look, we're just going to say what's on our mind. And how often do we complain about people who say nothing? Then they say something. It's like, well, is it appropriate to say that? They are a little bit. You know, we were speaking about it off air. Like, there's a lot going on in the sporting world at the moment. Like, the league is having a bit of a moment. Like, the main story on our site, Overnight Sports Wise, is this. When there's so much else going on, they're aware of the marketability aspect of that.
All I wanted you to do was pick a side, and you couldn't.
I just think there's two sides to it, Joe.
There is, and which one is yours?
And they're both potentially available for interview at some stage. And I want that one-on-one.
I don't think it's black and white that there's one
No, of course.
aggressor
No.
here.
Just wink with your right eye if it's Damien, and wink with your left if it's Stephen.
I want you to give us your Stephen Bradley Hamer theory again.
Have you never heard a nuance, Joe?
Yeah.
Listen, I see the nuance in this. I can see both sides. It's not a clear-cut one. I give you that.
Yeah.
I know I'm messing.
You've just given me the exact same response that I did. But, you know, it's fair enough.
Speaking of programme notes, this is how you do it. So Stephen Kenny on Friday, Bohemians the week before had led Bohemians for 90 minutes, 2 late goals, sucker punch for Pats, painful one. So they're playing Galway. Programme notes. 89th minute Friday, unforgivably conceded 2 late goals. The pain of that resonates and infiltrates your system and leaves you in a cave where light doesn't exist.
Jeez.
I mean, that definitely was his programme. They're not ghostwritten programme notes or interview programme notes. That is...
He's the best at programme notes. He's like all time, worldwide.
And like that means, yeah, he I don't know, in the Ireland gig, I don't know, was there that many memorable programme notes? You know, I don't think he had the same freedom to do that stuff, maybe.
Yeah, it's good. It's great though, and he's held court on, like, he'll be social issues. He'll go anywhere with them.
Yeah, I know. Look, it is a good time to be around it. There's characters who are willing to say stuff all the time. That's the good thing.
For fear of you having a go at me somehow, I'll go Hamer Hal Grimson and Stephen Bradley.
Joe gets a bit emotional sometimes.
He does,
you know?
yeah.
It's a really annoying thing to say, actually. When you said it there, it annoyed
I know,
me.
you're now. Yeah.
I'm Team Duffer over that one.
Everything
It's a bit emotional.
Ever since he got his new podcast, he's an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See him on the cupcake. Yeah, he'd eat himself.
I did. He's a bit emotional. You get a bit carried away.
That's what I'm saying about there's an almost an intimacy to that.
You know how to press his
like that's the sort of snare I'd do to my brother or something. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a familiarity to that that's not cold.
You work with people for long enough, people in this room or people you're out with in the office, you sort of know how to push their buttons. You know how to get the response.
All right, well, let's not go any further down that route. So Hamer paid for coffee. This is again Bradley Tone of the media. And he was effusive to Stephen Bradley about the meeting and felt it went really well. He's a nice man, like what I'd heard beforehand. I spoke to people in Iceland as soon as he got the job, and they said he's a nice man. It was never a personal thing. It was about respecting me, this club, this league as a whole, the players that are within it. He's got really good ideas. He thinks outside the box. What was a breath of fresh air is that he's really open to listening to people. It was really nice to hear because for too long it's been closed in there. And he kind of said similar things to that at length. And so Hamer, Bradley are on great terms.
Yeah, everyone likes Hamer. Everyone likes Hamer personally. Like Hamer, like, doesn't want to be surrounded, I think, by like the FAI handlers and people that other previous managers like wanted. They wanted to be like Hamer is sort of, yeah, he's
Man apart.
correct. So him and Bradley, but I mean, I don't know.
But wasn't it?
Are they going to be great mates in the future? Is it possible that Stephen Bradley at some stage will say this player should be in the squad?
Yeah.
I'd say it's entirely possible that could happen.
To clarify your kind of mangling of my Hamer, Hallgrimsson, Bradley interpretation, I just felt Hamer was not intending any slight or offence, and yet it was taken that way. That was, and could he have put it? Could he have phrased it better, or could he have just left it at "It's great to see them doing so well. It's wonderful." Yeah, he could have. Okay, but I think when someone's not intending offence, when it's not their first language, maybe there is a cause for benefit of the doubt. And to be fair to Hallgrimsson, the way he's bent over backwards to assure there was no slight intended, and he just wants the best for both Irish football and those individuals if they go and play Champions League football. I presume I'm allowed to say that. I hope some of these more talented Rovers players go and have a big career in England. Is that disloyal?
No, he handled that part of it well. There was actually the line that, not to go back over the old ground, but he did say if they're playing regularly when the squad comes around. It's
I didn't understand that.
Well, that's like, well, obviously they're going to be playing regularly. So the assumption is they're playing regularly somewhere else, and that's probably where you could take the offence that you are then saying
they won't get in the squad.
You have to play regularly somewhere else.
You kind of have to.
But he handled it well afterwards, and
I put it this way. Look, and to be fair to Bradley, met the man for a coffee, put it to bed, and seemed to have a frank exchange of views.
Yeah.
Both, like, Hamer moved to say, look, no offence intended, genuinely, and Bradley was absolutely man enough to say, great, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's great. Like, you'd love.
Whereas Duff, by contrast, look, that'd be the most boring conversation ever, or words to that effect. He didn't want to have the meeting. So
because Hamer's boring, or because
I don't know. I think he just didn't want to have the discussion. I can't remember what the context was.
Okay.
I don't know, but it was, Bradley's almost. They've both had a go at times, and Bradley's almost now thinking, well, I'll move a little bit more towards and see what they have to say. Whereas
Duff less open-minded.
Well, he's a bit more, probably has maybe more anger towards aspects of the FEI in him. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
It is a remarkable sort of reflection on the relative standings of these positions in football. Like, it was never considered incumbent upon Giovanni Trapattoni to go and meet any League of Ireland managers, because his status was so much higher, and their status were probably, in an overall context, an awful lot lower than Bradley are now.
Yeah, it's true.
There's no denying that. It's a weird about turn from sort of the difficult child to all of a sudden being, you have to listen. You have to have these people on side.
Yeah,
like, where child to the mother-in-law or something.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's good. I mean, you'd rather relations be good, for sure. What it actually means in real, tangible terms is less clear to see. I mean, Hamer's just going to pick the best players as he sees fit.
As he should.
Yeah, he'll go to a few League of Ireland games, and he'll be more complimentary, perhaps, publicly about it. But, like, in terms of when Bradley's saying he's very open to ideas, do you know what those ideas might be?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Hamer's big thing, in fairness to him, like, if the FEI wasn't broke, Hamer would have by now held a camp in January, February, where he had League of Ireland players and other people involved to see, could they, because that's what they do in the Nordic Scandinavian countries.
How much would that camp cost?
More than they have. The FEI at the moment are cutting the number of underage internationals you play across a year. Yeah. Training time is down for underage international teams. Right. Adding something else into it is just a non-runner. So
they're not going to Dubai.
Like, as I said,
they could do it at Abbottstown.
Like, I think I've said it here before. Like, Hamer's background is not like Trapp would have been looking down, and that's because Trapp is at the top of his game. Hamer's background is like from Iceland, where there would be a lot of integration that that the players in the league you watch are going to be in the squad in maybe 18 months to 2 years' time.
Yeah.
So, like, if Hamer wants to be in the gig for 3 years, there is a relevance to seeing Mason Melia and Michael Noonan now, because the chances are they could be, if you're going to be there in a couple of years. Yeah. Sometimes there can be a very simplistic view of, well, they're not going to be in the next squad, why would he bother? But if you are taking a whole sort of 360 look at the environment that you're in, you need to have a sort of a handle to what's going on.
No, it's a great point. We're cutting Irish international underage matches because of just budget.
Yeah. There's been fewer games in recent years. Yeah. So. So no, dude, Hamer has had like his idea. He came in and straight away said it. And I think pretty much afterwards said to him, "Well, that's fine, but you do realise we have no money for anything." You know, I'm paraphrasing here, but I think that would be along the lines of the discussion.
Okay. GA to finish on. I know you were in Killarney. The skorts controversy blew up in a big way over the weekend because the players for Dublin and Kilkenny in a Leinster semi-final said we're kind of sick of this, so they turned up in shorts. And then there's the very awkward conversation with the referee who says, yeah, this game can't go ahead if you wear shorts. And so they both had to march back down the tunnel, put on skorts, and the game went ahead. So, you know, it's a weird controversy because even outside we were saying we should do a full episode on this at some stage this week. And I was sort of saying, great, can we get someone on who's in favour of skorts? And that's impossible, is the funny thing. So Aisling Maher, Dublin captain, GPA co-chair as well, said, that was a career low for me today. 60 plus players ready to play a championship game in shorts, told the match will be abandoned if every player doesn't change into skorts. The context most recently, obviously we could go back all the way, but I mean, the context most recently is this very month, April, give or take, 2024. The Camogie Congress was on in Clane, County Kildare. 150 representatives, delegates from counties all over the country. And so there were two separate motions at last year's Congress. So the first one was from Tipperary, and this was the most kind of just replace skorts altogether. They're gone. We never wear them again. Shorts only. And that was by Tipperary. And so 64% of delegates voted against that. So then Great Britain proposed a more conciliatory motion, which was, let's just get whatever they want. Allow both. If you want to wear shorts, you wear shorts. If you want to wear a skort. If you're a traditionalist, that's fine. So that was a more conciliatory motion. 55% voted against that. And again, they need 2/3 majority here. And yet the thing I can't understand is that in every survey I can see of the players, 80% are against skorts. Somewhere between high 70s, mid 80%, are, whatever survey you're talking about, are against. So what's happening from the delegates, players to delegates, is really, really hard to see here. Like even that Tipperary motion, which was the more aggressive one, which was like bin skorts altogether, wear shorts, all 39 clubs in Tipperary unanimously supported the motion. So basically, in Tipperary, to put forward this motion, every single club said, yes, we want that motion going forward. So it's 100%. And then somewhere in the voting at Congress, it's like 64% against that one, 55% against having both shirts and skorts available. Alan Kelly, who's the chairperson of the Erupted Committee on Sport, is now inviting Camogie Association representative to the committee. We need to sort this out once and for all, he said. The Taoiseach is talking about it. This is archaic. And then final one from me, the Camogie Association, they released a statement. They're citing, look, democratic vote. The good news is because it was defeated, it can't be brought before Congress again until 2027. So that's not going to last. And one of the aspects here for players, it's not just like they don't like how they look. It's also that they're uncomfortable to wear. And so the Camogie Association have said they're going to set up a working group and they'll test the skorts for comfort, fit and design. That will begin in mid-May.
Yeah, well, they said that last year as well when the motion was actually defeated. The thing about the motions being defeated at Congress, maybe just a bit more context, is that there are a couple of counties who have a lot of votes at Congress because of the number of clubs they have. Two of those counties are Wexford and Cork. As far as I know, they were both against the motions, and so were the outgoing whatever they call the hierarchy in the Camogie Association, the sort of management committee. Okay. They were all mandated to vote in unison against it.
So Wexford and Cork have a lot of electoral college.
Yeah, basically that's the kind of clout. But like in an overall, and it probably doesn't warrant a whole pile of debate because, it's just so blatantly obvious. But like from the Camogie Association's point of view, and they've had a few very, very, very bad own goals over the last couple of years in terms of not listening to players and not taking players' needs into account when they should have done. One was a very ill-fated and ultimately abandoned All-Stars tour a couple of years ago, which they had timed for the week before the start of the Munster Championship, despite the fact that Cork were All-Ireland champions at the time and had the lion's share of the players. This was felt like it was going to be almost like a Camogie Association tour rather than an All-Stars tour for the players. But in this situation, we all know what's going to happen eventually. We all know what's going to happen eventually. It's not as if the groundswell of opinion amongst the athletes will suddenly turn back on its head and go, actually, we're going to love wearing skorts. This is what we're going to do. So why dig your heels in now? Why delay what is clearly progress? And the other thing is, from an optics point of view, administrators telling players that what they want to do is wrong is a bad look in any sport, anywhere. All those people who vote at county board level, people who serve at county board level, who do a big job and don't get any thanks for it whatsoever, them telling players, dictating to them what they should and shouldn't wear is such a horrible look. If you zoom out and just look at it from that point of view, this is so backward, it's untrue. And to have that situation where players had to go off the pitch, and I have sympathy for the referee in this case as well, because all the referee could do was enforce the rule, and the rule is that the players cannot wear skorts. But the fact that that rule even exists in the first place, we're in this is kind of end of day stuff.
Yeah.
This rule is going to go soon, and the people who drag it out for as long as possible, I don't think will be particularly well judged.
Hard to get them to go on the record as to why they're so taken.
That's another problem, and it's been a problem with any of the Camogie Association
Can't get them on.
decisions that they've made that might have been newsworthy or controversy ridden over the last few years. There's nobody standing up to kind of stand over this.
It is sort of mad how these things happen. Like, you think of the City Irish women's team in Liberty Hall in 2017, and there was obviously a protest and a threatened strike, but I was coming in today, and lunchtime radio, there was a big discussion about this, and you have something that's been in place for a long period of time, and then there's a flashpoint, and it just goes to a place where you just know, as you said, everyone knows where this is going now. Once it's the opportunistic thing where the politicians are getting involved now, where it's like, oh, this has got a bit of currency, we need to bring them in and do it. There's people there who would have had the platform before to comment on this, and they haven't. But you are just in that cycle where you know where it goes. The second thing that struck me, and Conor probably alluded to it there, it is striking so often in Irish sport how the sort of archaic way in which committees or decision-making bodies are constructed can have such an imprint on the game. And it's like
the democracy, and we can't vote again.
This is the way we've done it. These are the people who vote, and this can extend to a lot of sports. And sometimes you just step back from it and go, "Wow, how did you end up in this place?"
Yeah,
I understand completely when committees turn around to players and say, "Look, we know you want to play, whatever, a match every 2 weeks, but we've got other factors to factor in an overall calendar." That's the function of committees. But when you're talking to players about how they're directly affected in terms of their comfort and their wear. One of in conversations, one of the reasons that was given at Congress last year was projected this kind of notion of femininity, that skorts were preserving that as opposed to shorts, which is just absolutely bonkers. Now I don't want to represent everybody that voted that way at Congress, but that was one of the reasons given for retaining it. So no, this is one of those things that when it's gone, we'll quickly laugh at where it was, but we sort of need to move on with this thing pretty quickly.
Laughing now, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're out of time. We had meant to talk provincial finals. Galway Mayo, really good. You were at Kerry, very one-paced kind of an afternoon.
It was a lovely sunny day in Kerry.
Relaxing kind of day in the sunshine. We'll come back to GAA in due course. There is in your Indo GAA feed a full review of the hurling and the football. I'm told Pat Spillane was in fine form. So that's waiting for you. So you're covered in detail for the GA in the Indo GA feed. And the rugby, yes, yesterday has got you boxed off as well. So we will see you across the week with whatever is going on. Dan, thanks very much.
No worries.
Conor, thank you.
All right, Joe.